By the time Emanuel Chinka launched his Stack Marketer newsletter around 5 years ago, he already had a successful affiliate marketing business, but that business was largely dependent on the whims of other platforms like Facebook and Google. He wanted to build a product that he could monetize directly, and by that point he had grown to admire daily digest newsletters like Morning Brew and The Hustle. So Emmanuel decided to niche down and launch a newsletter geared toward the marketing industry. To grow the newsletter, he leveraged his skills in paid media and marketing, and today it has over 30,000 subscribers. In 2022, it generated over $500,000 through a mixture of paid subscriptions and sponsorships. In my interview with Emmanuel, we went deep on how he designed the newsletter, his growth strategy, and how he approaches monetization. Hello, I'm Simon Owens, and this is The Business of Content, the show about how publishers create, distribute, and monetize their digital content. If you want to listen to an audio version of this interview, subscribe to The Business of Content wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, now to my interview with Emmanuel. Hey, Emmanuel, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
So you run a very successful newsletter called Stacked Marketer. Let's talk a little bit about the origin story. So tell me a little bit about your background in marketing. Like, what were you doing prior to launching the newsletter?
Well, quite a while ago, I don't know how many years it was exactly now, I used to, to put a bit of context, fast forward, I'm originally from Romania. I moved to Vienna for a software business. That software business didn't go so well, different challenges. We pivoted towards a marketing business. The easiest way to get into marketing was to do affiliate marketing because you don't have to have your own product. You don't have to create any deeper relationships with the brands. You usually can jump right into running campaigns for different brands. So jumping into affiliate marketing was my first step into marketing, like running marketing campaigns. But after a few years of doing that, the whole idea was I want to do something that's my own product where I can, control more of what is going on. So what the user experience is like, what the actual, value proposition is and things like that. And
so your companies were hiring you to run their affiliate marketing, like, affiliate. I think of affiliate marketing as like creating special links and tags so that you could have attribution when people link to your product, so they get credit, sales credit for when someone buys your product. Is that sort of what it was?
Approximately, it was actually the person sharing those links. So generally, affiliate marketing you can do in several ways. You can have, a website, a content website that generates traffic through search or other means, and then you have people reading reviews or whatever, and then you have affiliate links there. But another way that you can do affiliate marketing is simply by buying traffic. So you can do Facebook ads, you can do email marketing, whatever way, native ads, whatever works or whatever fits well, to buy that traffic, send it to the landing page of the product owner through your tracking link, through your affiliate link, and you get a commission for every conversion. That sort of it's still like an arbitrage thing there, right? Because you buy traffic for cheaper than it converts from how much you get paid.
So you weren't being hired with a flat fee. You were just you were figuring out ways to arbitrage ad buying.
Risking your own money and risking your money to buy that traffic, to generate that traffic. If you don't generate conversions, you don't get paid. So
you'd spend like $50 on a Facebook ad to send and craft it really well, so send traffic to a landing page for some kind of product. But your hope is that you could make $100 on commission, so you make a $50
exactly.
$50
like that's
profit.
That's the basic flow. Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's what you were doing. So you weren't necessarily communicating with the end product creator. You were just finding...
Usually not. So it's actually, that's the thing. Usually you would be communicating with an affiliate network who would manage all, sometimes hundreds of affiliate programs. And then you would just be like, okay, I would want to be approved for this affiliate program. Here's, what I will do approximately. Some of them would be like, okay, you're just approved, doesn't matter, just do it. And some would be like digging more into, okay, show us your plan to promote it and stuff like that.
And so you're, like you said, you were taking on a lot of risk because you had to find underpriced marketing channels that wouldn't cost too much where you could make more. But if suddenly that marketing channel became prohibitively expensive, then you would lose your profit.
Yeah, exactly. So, and usually you would start by not making a profit because you would have to test many landing pages or like pre-sale pages, testing many ads, things like that. Don't get me wrong, it's still like a good model to get into marketing because you still, like, as you said in your example, you can start off with a few $100s to buy traffic, for example. you don't need to have like this huge marketing budget prepared to try things out like you need for, if you're building your own product. Now it's a bit easier, but the more you go into the past, the harder it would have been and the more budget you would need. But yeah, it also forces you to be as careful as you can with your marketing spend. So yeah, pros and cons to it, but was a good first step. But at one point, it just gets a little bit, like if you're putting in so much effort, could you put it for your own product? Like that's kind of the
Yeah.
question, and that's kind of where the seed for Stack Marketer came to be. From that point on, it's not like I knew that I want to build an email newsletter, because sending a newsletter was only something that I've done once starting Stack Marketer. But I knew that I
Mhm.
wanted something that I would also enjoy myself as a, let's say as a reader, consumer, whatever. Like as I would be a user of my own product, and tried a few things. And the
Well,
main,
were you reading newsletters of your own that you found inspiring
not
to
quite
like
yet.
I
That
want
in
to do
my
something?
research phase, I ran into a few. So in
Hmm.
this phase of like, okay, I want to do something of my own. Let's see what other people are doing in other industries, not in marketing. And that's why I found a few good newsletters that I was thinking, wow, I didn't know this exists. So I found Morning Brew and The Hustle. Those will be the two ones that definitely caught my attention. And my thinking was, okay, is there any? They're kind of focused one on more entrepreneurship. Morning Brew was way more focused on finance than now, like 5 years ago. So I was thinking, is there anything similar for the marketing industry? And especially like at the very, very beginning, the thinking was for the affiliate marketing industry. So like even a subset of the marketing industry. Couldn't find anything similar. And yeah, the idea was, okay, then let me just see. Let's start to see if we can build something that other people enjoy. First off with the Google document, then sharing with friends, and that's how it started.
Yeah, so like you didn't just launch it like a lot of creators do. You started by creating like mock-ups in Google Docs and then showing it to friends. I like the idea of creating a prototype before launching. I don't think enough creators do that. So what did these early Google Docs look like in terms of how you were thinking that you would kind of format this newsletter?
It wouldn't be hugely different in the Google Doc compared to now. So the Google Doc format is pretty similar to what we use now when we write it. But the main changes are, the type of content we put in there, the sections. Like we used to have just kind of text only longer sections. We adjusted by adding some images. We adjusted by adding, differently named sections from only news back then to now some own insights, some fun stories, things like that. So it evolved more in that direction, and the email part of it, like once it went from the Google Doc to the email, that's the thing that changed much, much more. But the Google Doc is still pretty basic, just a few guidelines of, you know, from wall of text, whatever, no formatting. Now we have a few guidelines in formatting. Like a typical one is that was harder to grasp for people who joined the team later. At the not hard to grasp, but like uh, a reflex wasn't formed there. Is don't write more than 3 lines of text without having an empty, like to then start a new paragraph within the Google document. Because if you have 3 lines on the Google document, that gets to like four, like that gets 5, maybe 6 lines even on a small screen on a mobile phone. And if you have like a
Hmm.
smaller screen, or you have your font set up to be a bit bigger than the default, then you just fill in the whole screen, so it starts looking bad. So there's like those sort of small attention to details in the Google Doc so that it looks good once you transfer it to the email template.
And you eventually moved from thinking you would do it about like affiliate marketing to a kind of a little bit broader purview. What's kind of the the kinds of stories that you look for to write about within the newsletter?
We try to look as much as possible for things relevant for marketers who are like running campaigns, opening ads manager, uploading ads, cutting things. So I would say we're less for a big brand CMO who's thinking more like broad strategy and doing. I tend to say like it's probably not for the CMO of Pepsi or Nike, who they care a lot about these super not necessarily complex, but bigger branding exercises with celebrities and things like that. It's more for like, let's say, direct to consumer brands, for the scrappy startup entrepreneur, for SaaS companies who really have to make the money worth it. Like I would say still digital performance marketing would be probably more of our target. It doesn't mean we don't have other content as well, but there was a discussion on LinkedIn. Someone was saying like, they're looking for a newsletter where they don't have just news about big agencies who, switched employees, one employee from the other switched or something like that. And it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's the news we don't put in there. Like it's relevant for some people in the industry, but not for our readers. If, big agency one, their CMO left to become CEO of big agency two. That's not relevant for our readership for the most part.
And it's mainly like stuff like, yeah, insights that might help them understand how these different platforms and stuff work and what drives success on them. If an Instagram ran out, like launched a new e-commerce tool or something like
Yeah.
that, you might cover it, something like
Yeah,
that.
just recently,
Um,
like maybe not related directly to marketing, TikTok is looking like they might try to help with warehouses and stuff in the
yeah,
US or something
fulfillment.
like that. So
Hmm.
yeah, so that's not directly for marketers, but if you're e-com marketer, then very relevant to you probably.
Yeah, so it's a big news like that.
Yeah.
So when did you end up launching the newsletter, Stack Marketer?
This was launched April, mid to late April 2018. So 4.5 years, almost five. Going to be 5 years soon.
Uh-huh. And so it has it from the very beginning. It had like a daily cadence, Monday through Friday.
Yeah, that's correct. So one of the things that we thought about was okay, a value proposition for the industry is probably that news comes quickly, and if there's an important new feature or important change in how Facebook ads works, or Meta ads now, because back then they were still
Hmm.
Facebook, Google ads, etc., then you would want to find it today. You don't want it like a weekly email will probably tell you too late about some things, and you're like, yeah, okay, I already was affected by this change, or I didn't know I already lost 5 days of this. So we thought, okay, let's try daily from the very beginning. There's other advantages and disadvantages, but that was like the main thinking point. Daily makes sense to try to update it. Let's see if there is enough content indeed to make it daily. But that was not really a challenge. So in the end, there are enough things going on in the industry that you can do a Monday to Friday newsletter.
And how did you start finding an audience?
Step by step was first asking people who I knew if they would want to try it, like, sign up, have a look at it, give me some feedback. And then if they said, hey, yeah, this is pretty good, or if they say, look, I would change this, or did you think about doing that? I would get this feedback, implemented, and then at some point in the near future, like in a couple of weeks, say, look, what do you think about it now? Is it better? And if they would say yes, I would kindly ask them to share, and marketers know marketers, share it with more.
Hmm.
And I also reached out to others who I only knew of, so not friends of mine or acquaintances, more people like, okay, we kind of saw each other online or maybe at an event but never spoke to each other, that had blogs or communities like Facebook groups. I reached out to them and asked, look, I'm building this. Can we do a paid partnership, sponsored post, whatever, in your Facebook group, your blog, and started growing from there. So I think those would be the main steps that got us to around 2,000 subscribers back then in the first couple of months. So starting with my
And then
own
you
reach and then reach of other people that I could interact with.
and then you were also doing like paid media and like newsletters and just like buying Facebook ads and stuff like that.
Yeah, that was a little bit after. So we tried as much as possible with this. We also implemented a referral program, which is, I think, like most newsletters should just have one. It's helpful for someone has a bigger impact, for someone has a lower impact, but it's like it's almost free, so to speak, depending on your size and what tools you use. And but yeah, then paid ads as well. With paid ads, I think nobody would be surprised to hear that paid ads are less like provide for less engaged audience than exchanges with newsletters or communities. So um, you know, very engaged communities will and very engaged newsletters would give you the most engaged readers for you as well. But paid ads for Facebook and maybe TikTok, things like that are still worth trying out, and we still do them today as well.
Did you have like an organic social media strategy at all?
Not really. Only small attempts here and there. With Facebook, Facebook doesn't really give you any reach. Instagram, you need to be more visual. We did think about trying out Twitter, LinkedIn, maybe. LinkedIn, we nobody on like I'm not familiar enough with it. I think it's probably one of the better platforms. And then Twitter. I could be wrong about this, but I think with Twitter it has potential. You just need to have a group of people who interact quickly with your like you basically need like a support group to be able to push a lot of that initial to get that initial boost for Twitter to uh, then reach more people outside of your main following. But if you have seen Twitter being able to push traffic from other accounts, so like people who gave us a shout out for, that we either featured them in a newsletter or we did a collab or something. Once they gave us a shout out, it worked really well sometimes. So that was always on our mind. Like, can we make it work directly from on our account? But we've never had dedicated person or even not even one person, let alone more people to figure out Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I've seen with my newsletter is making sure to make my audience aware of my other social media channels and try to create those feedback loops where I can drive
Yeah.
my audience to my Facebook group or my Twitter account or whatever. Then when I'm linking to it in the future and they start retweeting it and stuff like that, you can start creating kind of like feedback loops where they can help
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
drive traffic on those different channels. So I definitely, maybe start doing a regular plug for your Twitter account or your LinkedIn account, and offering like
Yeah.
extra, saying that they'll get extra curation or something like that, might be good. So who was signing up for the newsletter as you're seeing all these email addresses coming in? Like what industries did they work in? What kind were they just normal people? Were they like working at marketing agencies or were they individual entrepreneurs? Like what was the kind of demographics you were seeing?
It kind of evolved. At the very first, it was affiliates who would attend something like Affiliate Summit and Affiliate World. So the things that I would attend as well. So people who would know me, then kind of like from the not close, but the smallest circle that I knew in the industry, just expanded over time. And then at some point, like let's say 6 to 12 months, at some point we noticed that the segment that would call themselves affiliates wasn't growing, but instead the segment of people working in digital marketing agencies was increasing more and more. So that was also the point where we felt like, okay, our content seems to already attract digital marketing agencies and people who work there. Let's see, can we just make it even bigger because there's a bigger audience. Affiliate marketing is still relevant, and we'll probably still have content that's relevant to that, but um, agencies even more so. So and they're already coming to us. Like we should probably think, how can we make this work even better? And then from aside from these two, um, so one point is like agencies can be e-commerce or SaaS or lead gen. It seems like these three are the main topics. But then also a lot of people who read our newsletter are co-founders or founders of their own business. So whether there's the business is an agency or not, we don't really have the exact data on that. But yeah, many around 40% last time I checked are actually founders or co-founders of a business as well. So they wouldn't be just employees, but they run their own show to some extent, which I found pretty interesting because it's like it's the founder marketing who has to be scrappy and has to make sure that every dollar that they use counts for a return.
Did you do any surveying of your audience to try to get nail down the demographics for when you later were like selling ads and stuff like that?
Yeah, so we have an ongoing survey for everyone who signs up to get a bit of information. One part of the information is very useful for us to know how to tailor our content better. So to see like how many people care about certain things in the broader marketing industry, and then another one, yeah, what kind like whether they work in an like where they work, what kind of size their company has. For example, the revenue of their company is something that we ask about. I know a lot of especially consumer focused newsletters, like let's say mainstream B2C newsletters, ask about household income very often. For us, it doesn't really matter so much, but we did ask, of course, in an anonymous survey, the revenue for companies
Yeah.
to get an idea, right? If someone comes to us, okay, what's the purchasing power of your audience? Well, individuals, we don't know, but you're selling to a company. This is how much revenue the company makes. Kind of, you can get an idea from there. So those are like the main things that we ask about. It is something that over the years, like in the past couple of years, we haven't changed much, and I think it's something we can do even better, like ask even better questions that sponsors care about even more. but it's one of those things you don't realize it until they're okay. Yeah, now it's pretty obvious. After a few years, after a few conversations, like several dozen conversations with sponsors, you realize okay, there's a few key points that we're probably missing that can make it even better for the type of information we can provide.
Mm-hmm. And what did you do to interact with your audience? So did you set up, like, I know a lot of newsletter creators who set up Slack communities or Discord communities. What's your way of, like, creating like a two-way conversation with your community?
We haven't done so much there, or at least the attempts that we had weren't so successful. People kind of enjoy reading the newsletter, and of course, there's some interactions between the writing team like us who write the newsletter and people who reply to the newsletter. But in terms of groups, it's not been that easy. We initially had a Facebook group as a reward for referring people, but it's very difficult to keep interaction going there. And I've noticed other newsletters who did have such a reward for their referral program, they also had a similar issue. They've stopped. They basically kind of canceled the group. It's maybe it exists, but it's not something that they tend to actively.
Mm-hmm.
And then another thing that we did have a bit over a year ago, we did start a paid community, but that's kind of a separate product as a membership. It's not meant to be an extension, like it's an extension of the newsletter, but it's not meant to be a place where everyone who reads the newsletter interacts. It's meant to be premium content that people pay for with a
So
community element to it.
yeah, and then you also, like, really actively respond to people who hit the reply button to your newsletters.
Yeah, a lot. So I made sure, like, even now though we're like 10 plus people involved, still I get the emails and make sure that everything gets at least one reply. Like depending on what people reply and what they want to interact about, there's either a nice conversation going on for like a chain of 10 emails, or sometimes just like one two replies and that's it. But I don't want anyone to be left hanging that they replied to us anything and then they didn't get anything. The funniest ones for me are the ones where people try to forward the email, because I'm always like, I notice and I'm glad that they try to forward, and I just say, hey, I think you try to forward it, but if not, hey, how's it going?
Oh,
But
were
yeah.
they? I think this happened to me once, where somebody was like, they I guess they meant to forward, but they hit reply, and the message was something like, "Can you start implementing these
Yeah,
strategies
yeah,
or
yeah,
something
yeah.
like that?" And I
Yeah, 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 yeah.
was, so, cool. So, like, when did you start monetizing the newsletter?
We tried very early on because the whole idea was, look, even if I enjoy doing it, this has to be a real business. So we said, my thinking was like, okay, around 2,000 ish subscribers, you know, there's a few thousand people who can attend the conference. If you can get those 2,000 people or so to open a newsletter, or like at least thousand of them at a certain price, it's worth it for people who get booths at conferences or sponsor conferences. There's a price point where it just makes sense for them to sponsor a newsletter. That was my initial thinking. I was comparing it to what people do with the conferences, and that was 2018, so those were still happening easier before 2020. So with that in mind, I talked to exactly those sort of companies and got a few things going. Yeah, of course, way lower amounts than now, but it kind of helped us see, do readers mind if they have sponsored content in there, right? Like some people, if, depending on how you have your ads, if you've ran the newsletter for a few months without ads and then you start adding ads in it, some people might really, really hate it. And depending on how you do it, they are completely justified in hating the ads. So we wanted to see one that people don't hate ads, at least the ones that we provide. We wanted to see that sponsors are willing to pay, and then that they get good enough results to come back over time. Of course, it's depending on how much you grow, you don't have someone sponsoring like every single day or anything like that, like every week. That's even every week is a high frequency sponsorship in this case. But every couple of months coming around and buying a few more placements. That was kind of the goal. So it was from the very beginning that as quickly after we've seen that readers are interested, like we have an audience of readers, can we also monetize this? Because otherwise, it's not a business, unfortunately.
What's your strategy for finding advertisers, especially today? Like, do you have an active or do you have an active sales process, or is it more just inbound?
We're so lucky there because I think like 75% of our sponsors are inbound.
Hmm.
A lot of the marketers, like having a newsletter for marketers means that if they have a product relevant for marketers, they're a marketer working on a product for marketers.
Yeah.
So they contact us, so that's really good. But aside from that, we also are on marketplaces like Paved and Swapstack, which brings a little bit of extra revenue. And then working with other agencies is very helpful as well, especially when it comes to like these sort of bigger brands that it's hard to reach. Like they want to work with one account manager, so to speak, and spend more budget across other newsletters. MadRev is really great for that, I think. So it's like inbound, MadRev, and some of the marketplaces for us at the moment. Those are the main ways to get sponsors. It's still, as I said, though, we're really, really lucky that probably 75% of our sponsors are inbound.
Yeah, so the marketplaces like Paved and SwapStack, those are places where you can go basically create a profile and have all your core statistics and demographics, and then advertisers can then go in and search by category and stuff like that, find newsletters that they and see their rates and reach out and then sponsor, and then the marketplace gets a percentage of whatever the sponsorship is. For the inbound, how do you create that sales funnel? Like, do you have like a landing page that you're sending to them that gives them all the information so that they can, so they know how much it costs and what your demographics are and stuff like that? Or is it more just here's an email address and then you give all that stuff like in a back and forth?
We have a landing page for that. So in the newsletter itself, at the bottom, we have an advertise with us link or call to action. And then when you go there, you go to a page on our website that gives you some of the information, some examples, core stats, some examples, some testimonials, always very useful. Like I think that's the main thing. Like if others had good success with you, you really have to present it. And then we have a contact form. Well, two things. A contact form there where you can leave the information about what you're looking for. So let's say, my name is HubSpot. I'm looking to promote this lead magnet. This is my budget. That's what I'm looking for, and then we contact them. So maybe I was thinking, not sure if this is 100% ideal. It's been working for us, but it is something to always think about depending on your situation. Do you want to be the one sending the email first? Because it's kind of a cold email. You might get sent to spam, deliverability. All these sort of things matter. But for us, it's been working. So it's fine for us to just get their information, then contact them. But the other thing we also have on the same page is like, okay, if you're not ready yet, here's a form where you can leave us your email and your name, and we'll send you every once in a while. We'll send you updates about our prices, our offers. For example, this is a very useful way to say like, hey, this month we have 3 placements left. We are giving them for 33% off because we cannot sell them, like remnant traffic like that. Or hey, a sponsored just said that they cannot run this campaign anymore. We have this date available. First come, first serve, half price off. So this helps you just get more inventory sold if you really need it. Yeah.
And are you trying to sell kind of bulk placements in the sense of like, how about you buy one, buy 12 ads spaced out one a month or something like that?
Yeah, I think a lesson we learned earlier on is that depending on your size, but almost always, it's better to sell several placements rather than one for a few reasons. So clear advantage as the creator, yeah, you sell more, so that like it's you get more money. That's a clear advantage. So not putting it out there, but not a secret. I mean, but there's another advantage when it comes to the type of sponsors you get and the type of results the sponsor get. So you get sponsors who are more focused on proper testing rather than hoping for a magic bullet with one ad.
Yeah.
So in the earlier days, we had the sponsors who just wanted to put everything in one ad instead of like we've noticed that the best ads do well when they are focused on maybe a secondary value proposition. So something really important for our readers. Put that out there and don't talk about all the bells and whistles that are nice to have but not must-haves. Like the value perception is the biggest thing you have, and then the more you add, it's like the average. It's not additional, it's an average of what you provide there. So when you have multiple placements sold, people are more like, yeah, we have the next placement, we can focus in the way you suggest in this one or something like that. So we have a better chance of doing that. And then because it works, sponsors return more often, and they're more, they don't expect magical things to happen just at once. And we've seen this for people who booked packages. First one goes great, second one bombs, and then third one is again good enough, and they're like, yeah, okay, lesson learned. Now we know how to promote it. We want more. But
Yeah.
imagine you just some of the time, 33% of the time, you're gonna bomb, and then they
Yeah.
don't renew with you. So
Yeah.
it's better. It's really, really much better.
Yeah, I just had a call with one of my sponsors for an upcoming newsletter, and he runs like a content marketing agency, and he was gonna list like every single thing he did for the content marketing agency, and I was like, no, just pick one thing that you do really well and that's kind of specialized, and just make it about that, and you can send people to a landing page that lists all the other stuff.
More, yeah, yeah.
But you're gonna pull people in if it's like an actual like kind of targeted offering. So do you offer to try to incentivize bulk buys? You probably offer discounts and stuff like that if they'll purchase like 10 or more ads or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. So offering some discounts is probably the easiest way to explain it, and I think that's something that everyone can really do. But usually, also this sort of discussion, like what I just said here, also resonates with sponsors. They're like, okay, yeah, makes sense. And then the bulk buys are not always, not always 12. It can also be like 3, 4, sometimes even 2, depending on what they do. So if it's someone who really knows, like, okay, low budget, this is my own, these are my offers. So what we've done in the past year is, instead of saying a minimum necessarily on placements, more a minimum on spend, and then saying like, look, this is the minimum spend, and in your case this would be what's probably best, will give you the best chance of testing a few things and getting the best results. So because then we can, since we have more than one type of sponsored placement in our newsletter, we can say, for you, you have to get the main placement. It's the reality, your product is complicated and you're selling to enterprise level customers. You a tweet length classified style ad won't do it for you. That's what you need to get. But in some cases, there are people who have very clear value propositions or lead magnets, or like advertising a newsletter. For them, the best results might be from a small classified ad, best cost per click for them overall. So why pay for the extra space when you don't really need it? You're just, value proposition can be summarized in a tweet. People click on it, you get results. That's the best use of your budget. So that's something that we try to offer as advice from our side for our potential sponsors. Like, try to be somewhat hands-on in the way they present themselves to our readers.
And how do you figure out pricing? My sense is that newsletters, because it's a more intimate audience, you can charge way higher CPMs, especially if it's niche. Like, I'm charging like over $100 CPM. What are you thinking in those terms?
It's around the same amount for us. It depends a little bit on the placement. So if it's a classified, it's obviously much less than that. But generally, it's kind of a feedback loop. So you think, okay, what I do is look at the mix of CPM plus CPC, so a cost per click, roughly based on performance, and then putting the offer out there, seeing what the feedback is from potential sponsors, and if everyone says it's too expensive and you're not booked out, then it's bad. But I found the balance for us is to set a price where we're kind of booked out 3 to 4 weeks in advance. And then that's kind of like the sweet spot. It's not, you have enough demand, and then you can always, whether you grow your newsletter enough to be worth the same price, you raise your prices a bit later if you want more demand. Or, in some situation you're like, okay, we're not growing so much, maybe we have to adjust the price to be a little bit lower. So yeah, but that's essentially the same logic here. Seeing what what people are willing to pay. You can also check out what some other newsletters are doing, like with the marketplaces that we've said, prices are pretty public there. So you can go there and see. You can also think like, okay, maybe the prices put on the marketplace includes the fee, doesn't include, but it gives you a rough idea at least. That's a good starting point, I think.
What kind of team did you build out?
Fully remote, so we've never had the local office or anything. And again, something that we were lucky with. Most people who joined the team were from from our readership. So first few hires, just like, hey, we're looking for someone to write in our newsletter. Like, we need some writers. Let us know if you're. Here's the job description. Let's talk. So we're a fully distributed team now. Like, we have U.S., Europe, Asia, and then I don't know how many South America too. So like North America, South America, Europe, Asia. That's kind of like we're split, and then still mostly Europe. Overall, just time zone coincidence, I guess.
And what kind of roles did you hire for?
Writer is obviously the first one, I would say. You need someone who can focus purely on making great writing content, or if you're a newsletter creator. Then design, very helpful to also for providing sponsors with different design ideas. Um, and then marketing, growth, partnerships, whatever you want to call it, you can split them. Depends on the overall monetization models, but those are the main roles.
And you eventually launch a paid subscription of some sort. What was that?
Yeah, we launched it 1.5 years ago now. It's been a while. Um, when you have a newsletter, the general consensus is, or the general things that people tell you is like, hey, you have an audience, you should build more things around it. And it's true, but at the same time, the first thing that people say is usually a podcast. I know you have one,
Yeah.
and it's going better, but the thing is, to do a podcast, you need certain skills that a newsletter writer might not have. Or in this case, outright me, I don't have the right skills to do a podcast. It's just, I realized it after trying. So, hit by the reality of things, at the end of the year, there was kind of a meeting and also a discussion of me thinking, okay, what are we really good at, rather than what other people are doing? Because other people are doing it maybe because they're good at it, or maybe they're just because they want to. Doesn't matter for us. It's like, what are we really good at? The thing that I think we are very good at is written content, and especially distilling noise and like filtering through a lot of noise to provide more valuable insights, or like provide what matters for marketers. And then from this assumption that we're good at this, we wanted to try to do a premium content membership where we do exactly that. Like, we dig deeper into different marketing topics, into brands, what they're doing, and provide a report, let's say, on that. And then, see if people would want it. That was kind of the logic, because to do it really well, it has to be paid. Like, for free, it's way, way, way too much work to do it for free. Like, it takes maybe 100 hours a week throughout the whole, not a week, a month,
A month.
from everyone who puts effort into that. So for free, it's very difficult to do. Sponsored, how do you put it? Sponsors, does it reach enough people? I don't know. It seems like clearly a paid model is good, and it's something that, especially in finance and investing, is pretty common. Like, you have reports on industries, on different companies and things like that. So that's the inspiration was there. Like, okay, if they do it, can we do something similar? So that was the starting point of it in I think it was 2021 March 1st, roughly. Did a
And what's a hypothetical report that you would create?
Um, well, e-commerce brands were the first one we looked into. So looking into e-commerce brands, we also did a report on Morning Brew, for example, because I was very familiar with what they do. So essentially looking into how they grew their audience to reach where they were back then when we did the report. Now they're even bigger, of course. And then over time, we also saw that people want reports not necessarily on certain brands, but maybe on certain ad networks or advertising platforms. And we did some of that. It's still something that I would say is relatively early compared to the free newsletter. So the free newsletter is free newsletter is 4.5 years old. This is 1.5 years old, and you can see the difference. I can remember how much better the newsletter is now compared to how it was when it was 1.5 years old, and I see the same thing for the paid membership. There's so many things that we can and should improve till it reaches the point where it's like, okay, it's great.
How
But
long
yeah.
is a report usually?
Between 50 and 100 pages is kind
Yeah,
of
so
it
these are
goes there. So
meaty
it's it,
things. Yeah.
yeah, so it's not something that you can just skim over. It's not like the newsletter where you can, if you read in depth, less than 10 minutes, and if you skim through it for the main thing, it's 2 minutes. It's not like that. It's more like, that's why it's one a month, to be honest. So like we
Yeah.
started with one a month. It's like you really have to go through it. And actually, that is a question, if we haven't answered completely, is whether or not such a media report is the best way. Some people love it, which is great, but also, do enough people love it? Because some people did say outright, like, no, it's just too long. I don't have time to go through all of this at once.
Yeah.
So it's challenging to deliver the right format with the right insight. It's a challenge that we're trying to still solve. Like, it's still something that provides a good amount of revenue for us, and it's worth it, and we want to make it better, but it's a small part of our business still. It's not as easy as just like snapping your fingers, putting something behind a paywall, and people pay for it. It doesn't work that way.
How does it delivered? What is it, like a PDF?
We host it on our website as a PDF, so you get
Yeah.
access to a membership site, and you can read it offline as well as a PDF. Yeah.
And how long? How much is the subscription?
In our case, the price is 99 per month, and we also have a yearly subscription, which is 699 a year, so 699
Yeah.
a year, which makes it around half, a little bit more than half price. We did start it off with a bit lower, so we have a few. I think like we have 20 or so lifetime memberships sold, 22 I think it was in the end.
Hmm.
And then we sold at 29 a month, 49 a month, and then 99 a month. So we had a few stages in the launch process to see, see where like the sweet spot is. Funny enough, in my current from the current information, the pricing is not the main issue, because people buy it for work, so like they can expense it, and it's, it's more like, does it provide them with enough information, or does it provide enough value for their careers or for their business to be worth the 99 a month? It's, we've had people who said 29 a month is too much. We had people who say 99 a month is too cheap. Can they, just, it's like, how can we sell so cheap? Because usually these things are 500 a month or something like that. So
Yeah.
it's a very, very wide range of feedback there. For some people, it's the holy grail. For some people, it's not worth a coffee.
I feel like you could take the individual reports and sell them for like $200 on like Gumroad or something like that.
Could be, could be. We did think about that as well. The downside of that is that you're kind of always on this. You're always like, next report must be the best one, and then I don't know if it creates the same. I think it kind of, there's a bit less community aspect of it. The reason why we did the subscription thing was that I was part, and I'm still in part of some marketing communities, and the reason most of them start kind of fading out is that they don't have consistently good content put out there. So the logic here was, okay, if we can, start the flame with very good consistent content, and then the community around gets built around that, like there's more interaction, that would be amazing if it happens. Has it happened that much? It's way more challenging than, you see posts on Twitter, I'm starting a community. It doesn't work that way. You don't really start it, like it's really tough, I think, to create it and to get that interaction going.
Yeah, but
But
like you
yeah.
have, that's why you price it so it's beneficial to subscribe, but if they do just want that report, they have to pay more, so it's like, from $100 to $200, so it's twice as much, but at
Yeah,
least you can
yeah.
make that passive income in case there are people who just want to read like a single report that they're doing research on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you're pretty open about revenue figures, correct? How much money are you generating with the newsletter?
Yeah, pretty open about it. We put like a yearly report out there. Usually we
Mm-hmm.
put that in January, so it's like the one that we have now is a bit old. So last year we did 360 USD, I think it was. Um, just one thing there, like our account, we're based in Europe, so our accounting is in euros. So like
Mm-hmm.
there might be a few, like, especially with now the exchange rate, how much it changed in the past year, some like variation of that. And
Mm-hmm.
this year we're on track to hit over 600,000 in revenue for
Mm-hmm.
the year for 2022.
That's awesome. Can you just give us a quick walkthrough of your day, the day of compiling and sending the newsletter?
Yeah. So let me do it from like North American time zone because it makes
Sure.
more sense. So afternoon, early afternoon, North America, let's say Eastern time. There's We start to go through some sources, see what are the main news items that we would want to feature, and then later in the afternoon, so like after 4 or 5 p.m. when the news cycle, we notice kind of there's no more big news coming after that. We actually put the biggest news in a document, sorted by where we want to feature each part of it. Then we write it out in the Google document. Then the editor gets like the final run through everything to make sure they put together, the news, the sponsors, and everything else is structured top bottom exactly how we want it to be in the newsletter. And then European time in the morning, so it would be like around midnight in the US, I guess. We actually put this into our campaign monitor template and schedule it to send it out. Before we send it out, we send out a test to ourselves. We want to make sure that it looks the way we expected. We do another proofread. Like a few people on the team are around, and then they go through it. They make any last sort of typo. They try to catch final typos or things like that. We also do a deliverability test using something called, I'm not sure if they want to say Glock apps or Glock apps. Essentially, they have a bunch of emails, email addresses, inboxes you send to their list, and then you see if you get put in like spam promotions or primary inbox, and then they give you a few other pieces of information. Very useful. We regularly do that every single day. If everything is okay, it gets scheduled for noon Austrian time, which depends on winter, summertime changes and stuff like that. But generally, morning time in the US, so it's like 7, 8 a.m. Eastern time, and then of course way earlier in on the West Coast.
So you mentioned a little bit of your tech stack there, from Google Docs to this
Mm-hmm.
Glock platform. What's your the rest of your tech stack? Not just for sending the newsletter, but also other various tools that you're using that you find really helpful.
Yeah, sure. A website is on WordPress. I think that's probably one for people to know. I started out actually having a landing page on ClickFunnels, so just like quickly to build it, easier. But then again, if you know WordPress, it's even better, I think. So
Mm-hmm.
if I were to start again, I would not do it on ClickFunnels. It was just like, oh, I've now tried WordPress before. ClickFunnels is drag and drop, but it works. Don't worry about it. Just do whatever
Mm-hmm.
simple opt-in page that has the opt-in form above the fold on mobile. That's what you care about. So don't overthinking if you're doing a newsletter, like starting a new project there. Then Google Drive we use for a lot of things. So Google Docs, Google Sheets, and everything like that is pretty much like I would say close to the core of our business. We use Campaign Monitor to send the emails. Don't overthink it. Active Campaign, Beehive, Substack, they can do the job. Pros and cons to each, in my opinion. And then we actually stopped using Slack a couple of months ago, which surprised a few people when I talked to them. And we started using Basecamp. So we had Slack plus Asana at the very beginning. Um, we had paid Slack, free Asana. But then we thought, okay, there must be a better way to manage so many sponsors. Asana, kind of to have all the right features, you have to pay for it. What are the alternatives for project management? Basecamp came up. Enjoyed it for project management, so we use it as a place where we can add our sponsors as well to interact with them. Um, Sends auto reminders and things like that. It's just very useful instead of myself or someone else having to always ask, hey, your sponsorship is coming up, can you please do this? We can have a template where we add everything, and then they know, like, okay, automatic reminder, you have this task, briefing for this sponsor post, or like approve this copy, things like that, send automatically. Very good on Basecamp. And then not at the same time, but a few months later, Slack still has bugs for a few of us. They don't send notifications. They're missing messages on mobile devices, and we were paying more and more for them as we grew. But at the same time, Basecamp has the chat feature as well. So we tried it out, and then instead of paying, 1,000 a year for Slack, we don't pay for Slack, and then we pay 1,000 a year for Basecamp, including project management and this. So it's like, and as we grow, Basecamp has the same price. So the more people we add, the same price, and the cheaper per user it ends up being. I'm not saying that it's a perfect solution, but it's much better. Like, I haven't missed messages from Basecamp, but I regularly had messages missing from Slack, which is kind of important. So yeah,
Because
that's
Slack is just too overwhelming because it's just too real time. I feel like, whereas Basecamp
yeah.
is
Basecamp has a
more.
nice Yeah, it has a good mix, right? You have a message board, which is kind of like a forum format where you can have on topic, in depth discussion. And then they have real time chat. So you can kind of do whatever you need. With Slack, threads, and stuff, it can work, but it's not the same.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Emmanuel, those were all the questions I have for you. Where can people find you online?
Sure. Best place is still stackmarketer.com. So I still read the newsletter replies. So if you want to reach me, replying to any sort of newsletter it will reach me as well. But otherwise, I am on LinkedIn and Twitter. I'm not actively posting, but I'm actively checking my accounts. Or if you DM me or you want to find me, it's Emanuel Chinka for both. You'll be able to find me, I think.
All right. Well, this was a lot of fun. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.